President, do you anticipate more strikes on Venezuela's drug boats?
Well, we'll see what happens. There's certainly not a lot of boats out there, I'll tell you, since the first strike and then to a lesser extent the second. We don't see any, we almost see no boats out there, which is fine as far as I'm concerned.
Do you think we will start seeing strikes on mainland Venezuela?
Oh, we'll see what happens. Look, Venezuela is sending us their gang members, their drug dealers, and drugs. It's not acceptable.
Those were comments that President Donald Trump made prior to the US military striking a second Venezuelan boat today. Now, yesterday, Trump left his options open when it comes to a strike on Venezuelan mainland, which shouldn't really surprise anyone at this point. Now, meanwhile, Venezuela is claiming that the US military targeted a simple fishing boat, the first boat that was struck. A Navy destroyer approached the tuna boat, which was sailing in Venezuelan waters. Now, I'm not gonna take anything anyone says at face value until I see some evidence, but I do think it's notable that the Trump administration did not name any names as it pertains to the first Venezuelan boat that was struck. They're so sure that that boat contained narco terrorists. Well, why don't you name them? Why don't you ID them? Why don't you give us their bio so we actually know who was targeted? None of that has happened. Now, the boat was then boarded by 18 armed US personnel who remained on the ship for 8 hours. Now, the Venezuelan government is now urging its citizens to take part in a volunteer armed militia in case there's an invasion by the United States military. So they're preparing for war on their soil. And speaking of a potential US invasion, a friend of the show, Ken Klippenstein, who's been excellent on reporting updates on this story, reported the following last week. The Trump administration is weighing additional military options against Venezuela if the regime of Nicolas Maduro doesn't step up pressure on drug cartels, military sources tell me. Attacks could come if Venezuela threatens US forces in the Caribbean, either by shooting down Venezuelan military aircraft or by bombing Venezuelan military airfields. And last week, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, or I should say Secretary of War, released the following message.
To the sailors and Marines of the Iwo Jima, Godspeed. It's an honor to be aboard with you today. You are an incredible representation of America and American power. So I charge you, it's not if, it's when. You're on mission. Narco terrorists and drug traffickers are on notice. We will no longer allow the poisoning of the American people. And the full power of the American military, used precisely with a clear mission, will be used to ensure the American people are kept safe.
Well, that was yet another piece of evidence that this is the kayfabe presidency. Okay, it's all wrestling theater. It's just so sad and dangerous, and this should concern everyone. Because again, this is not about, the drug trade. The drug that's killing so many Americans right now is fentanyl. The material comes from China, and then it is processed in Mexico and brought over to the United States because unfortunately, there is high demand for fentanyl. Why is that? Why would people need a drug like fentanyl that can obviously kill them? It's because a lot of Americans are in despair right now. And rather than, addressing the root of that problem, Trump is pretending like he is engaging in a war against Venezuela over drug trafficking, when in reality, it's all about regime change in Venezuela, considering they have the largest oil reserve in the world. So, yeah. Cenk.
So look, guys, here's how you can tell it's a pretense. So is Venezuela the largest exporter of drugs in the region? Not even close. So look, I don't want to give them ideas about Mexico or Colombia, but does Colombia export more drugs than Venezuela? Yes. So why aren't we threatening Colombia? Because it doesn't have anything to do with drugs. Oh, you want to guess who has more oil, Venezuela or Colombia? Of course, Venezuela. Venezuela is one of the biggest oil reserves in the world. Colombia doesn't. So it ain't about drugs, it's about oil. So there's no question about that. And then you get to what Anna was referring to with that wrestling term, right? I mean, look, when I see that propaganda video with Pete Hegseth, first thing I think of is, I can't believe our Secretary of Defense is a weekend Fox host. Like, this is a joke, man. Normally the Secretary of Defense, and they do terrible things anyway, don't get me wrong, right? But they command some degree of respect because they've had some experience, etc. As he's walking around doing this Hulk Hogan act and all that, it's especially sickening, guys, because they constantly use our troops as sitting ducks. They put them in the middle of the Middle East. Oh, please, Iran attack them, please. So we can have an excuse to wipe out the Iranian regime and do regime change like Israel ordered us to, right? Oh, look at our base in Qatar. Now Israel's attacking Qatar and putting those guys in danger. They put our guys in Iraq in danger, etc. Oh, please attack our troops so we'll have an excuse to do all these wars. Now, go to Venezuela, that one doesn't have anything to do with Israel. But again, what do? They bring in a whole bunch of US military, and they, as you see from the reporting there, they're almost hoping that Venezuela counterattacks, and if they do, that's it, you murdered 13 US soldiers and seamen, etc. That's it, we're now gonna have to wipe you out and do a regime change. So, but who is the ones who get hurt there? Our troops, our guys. And they're putting them there to get hit, to get hurt, for a war we don't need at all, but apparently the oil companies are demanding. This is what's wrong with money in politics. It leads us to endless tragedies, including more and more war, because defense contractors, foreign governments, and oil companies demand more wars, and they bribe our politicians to get them. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.